Welcome to the Note Nuggets podcast, where you can learn how to become the bank, build wealth, and accumulate streams of income perfect for your savings or IRAs. You'll hear from industry experts, seasoned veterans, and everyday investors. Our goal is to teach you how to invest in notes, one nugget of knowledge at a time. Here's your host, Kevin Galang.
Welcome to another episode of the Note Nuggets podcast, where you learn how to turn other people's debt into income for your savings or IRA. A couple of advantages of being a lender are that you, as a lender, get security and cash flow. As a lender, you're secured by the property the borrower lives in and owns. Assuming the borrower makes their payment, then you get monthly payments sent directly to your account. It's really as passive as it gets. Note investing, however, is not a perfect asset class. One of the most common objections from non-note investors is that it takes too long to get your money back. And I can understand why they say that. However, without getting too much into the details here, there are ways to leapfrog your money through your notes, or how you can invest into a shorter term note and have the same advantages as an investor who invests for long-term growth with notes. Well, what if you're investing in notes using your IRA and you can't access that money for decades, and you're looking to grow your nest egg with the comfort of securing your money through a property? Then note investing can absolutely be a great fit for you, which is why this week's Note Nugget is about how to make profits with notes through your IRA. But first, let's learn about our guest. Eddie Speed has purchased more than 40,000 notes over his 40 years as an investor. At his core, Eddie is a problem solver that is skilled at identifying roadblocks and finding solutions to creatively close deals. Eddie is also an esteemed teacher of all aspects of real estate notes, having spoken at events across the country. In 2003, he founded Note School, a real estate coaching program that teaches students to buy and sell performing and non-performing notes, as well as other alternative purchasing strategies like seller financing. And over the past decade, he has helped countless investors expand their portfolios by the millions using his out-of-the-box techniques. To learn more about Eddie or Note School, head over to noteschool.com. All right. So we were talking about people investing in notes with their IRAs. How can they do that creatively, or how can they do that in general with an IRA?
Well, IRA administration companies, and we say IRAs, it's really self-directed retirement accounts. It can include, Coverdell educational accounts. It can include health savings accounts. So it's not necessarily for somebody like me that's just got gray hair, right? Because there's so many cool strategies you can do with the same note transaction. There are so many cool places you can do it. It could be an IRA, it could be a SEP, a 401k, all of these different things, but including the other tax advantage accounts, which are educational accounts and stuff like that. And that would really apply more likely to a young person. So people, as you said, people don't really generally realize that they can go out and learn how to just go take and buy a note and receive monthly income. I started in the business at a long time ago, right? 1980. And you and I were talking before the interview. This was seller financing became prevalent. Seller financing always becomes prevalent when conventional lending doesn't work, right? And we're on the cusp of a substantial increase in seller financing. And you say, well, how do you know this, Eddie? Because 30% of the people that could get a conventional mortgage in January can't get one today, right? So I can pretty much tell you that seller financing is going to fill that gap. Not 100% of it, but even if it filled, 10 out of 30%, it would double the amount of seller financing that we see. So I think we're going to see a lot more activity. So the guy's collecting payments. He's owner financed a property, and he's collecting payments every month. Well, he wakes up and says, I want to cash out, right? So that note can be sold. And you sell that note, and now you're buying the right to receive that monthly income. So I started doing this in 1980 for that reason, because a lot of people had created notes. And it's just morphed into one thing after another. I've closed about I don't know, north of 50,000 transactions. So, seen a lot of different ways to do it. Real estate investors create seller financing on a recurring basis. And then just an individual seller finances a property that they own. So they're what we call a mom and pop, right? They're just a one-time person that creates seller financing versus a real estate investor that does it over and over. I've done most of my volume because I helped real estate investors with a formula, a recipe of how to create seller financing. And then I could buy their notes, right? I set up the note system for home investors, for example. I did that in around 1992. So there's a lot, home investors, the ugly house guys, right?
Yeah.
And so I did a lot of that where I was helping a guy that was he was creating financing, but he needed some structure. He needed a recipe of how to create the best notes, and then we could buy them the most. So somebody buys a note, and then what do they do with it? Like, where do people fund the money to buy a note? We found about 40% of the people that buy private notes fund them with some kind of, it's what the IRA administration calls a tax advantage account. Now, only 40%. So 60% of them are bought with capital outside of a retirement plan or an HSA or whatever. But 40% of them are inside that plan. So somebody then buys the note. Historically, notes are traded at a discount. Now, that's not an absolute. You don't have to do that.
Right.
But historically, notes have been bought at a discount. And once you buy that note, then you're going to figure out you're not a burnout landlord anymore, right? Because a burnout landlord, and that's a lot of our audience, quite honestly, is that they bought a rental property as an alternative to traditional stocks and bonds, but they found out that it didn't financially model the way they thought it was going to model. They've been disappointed, right? And a note's just easier. I mean, you have it third-party service. There's not a significant amount of management decisions to make if you buy a good note, and you just collect a check.
Just collect the check. There's no toilets, no tenants, no turnover, and that's what I love about notes.
It's true. People think it's kind of like, oh, this sounds like a Ginsu knife salesman. No, it's just the truth. That's literally what banks are doing and what they have been doing for such a long time. And we're just a small piece of that big pie. And that's okay. And we're talking billions of dollars when it comes to that small piece of the pie. Yeah, that's true.
Whether you buy notes in your IRA, savings, or even checking account, it's a great way to create cash flow and make a profit on your money, just like our guest described today. To learn more from Eddie Speed and get access to the full interview with him, head over to notenuggets.com/note-profits. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you for tuning in to this week's episode of the Note Nuggets podcast. Be sure to subscribe to the show to get access to additional weekly value nuggets and get notified with episode updates. To subscribe, all you have to do is head over to subscribe.notenuggets.com. If you have any questions about this episode or note investing, book a time on Kevin's calendar at contact.notenuggets.com. We'll see you next week with another note nugget to add to your tool belt.